Peter Greenberg's live global travel update is presented to you by Air Canada, connecting the world with more than 1,000 daily flights to 180 destinations and 6 continents.
Hi, everybody. Peter Greenberg here with your global travel update for the second Friday of July, 2025. We have a jam-packed show today, so much to talk about. Let's start with some of the stuff in the news and then some pretty interesting stuff beyond that. First and foremost, of course, this is the week the TSA has rolled out for the first time in nearly 20 years. You don't have to take your shoes off going through security. We go back nearly 20 years ago. That was the famous Paris to Miami flight on American Airlines with the alleged shoe bomber. Richard Reed tried to detonate his sneakers on the plane. Thankfully, he was caught, but that started this whole thing. So effective immediately, nobody has to take their shoes off. Of course, if you're already a member of TSA PreCheck, part of the Trusted Traveler program, you didn't have to do that anyway, but now it's across the board. Obviously, if you show up at the airport wearing a full metal jacket with full metal medieval shoes, it'll alarm the system. But the good news is they have the technology now to distinguish between shoes and an explosive device. And therefore, they are very confident that they're able to do this, and they are doing it. That's the first thing. Second of all, we're seeing how many flights the airlines have now cut this summer at a time when airlines never cut flights. That'll give you an idea about decreased demand. If you add up United, American, Delta, Air Canada, JetBlue, and Southwest, we're talking over 800 flights canceled over about 76 separate routes. In Southwest's case, they canceled a humongous number of flights in St. Louis, 247 to be exact, a 41% drop of flights in San Diego, similar cuts in San Jose, California. How does that affect you? So many of the long-haul flights on Southwest, such as they are long-haul flights, connect in places like St. Louis. So that means frequencies are being cut, capacities are being reduced, which means in the law of supply and demand, airfares have nowhere to go but up. JetBlue, as of September, pulling out of Miami entirely. That's 14 flights a day, no longer operated by JetBlue after Labor Day. And of course, Air Canada basically ending about 500 flights, a lot of them to the United States. Now, where are these flights going? The planes aren't being grounded. Air Canada is repositioning many of these flights to where? South America and Europe, where Canadians are now preferring to go instead of the United States. Speaking of where Canadians would rather go other than the United States, take a look. Talk about creativity with a little bit of sense of humor. This tourism ad from Canada that's running right now.
Bonjour, est-ce que je peux vous aider?
Sorry, I don't speak French. I'm just visiting.
Well, then welcome to Canada's Eastern Townships. Where are you visiting from?
I'm American.
Ah, okay.
Oh, Canada. Okay. Now, a couple of other things on a more serious note. The investigation is continuing nearly a month after the tragic accident on the Air India 787. The Indian authorities have been very, very silent in reporting their findings, but some news is leaking out, and it's very curious. In fact, it's getting curiouser and curiouser. No final deductions or conclusions have been made. However, the investigators are focusing on something that may tend to imply that this plane crashed because of a willful act. It goes back to the fuel shutoff switches. that are located on the cockpit console right below the throttles. These are special fuel shutoff switches that you'll see in every plane that can't just be accidentally activated. They're activated in the event of a fire by a captain or a co-pilot. And the only way you can activate them is by literally pulling them up, going through a gate, a little bit of a gate, so that there's no accidental application here, and then pulling it down. You have to willfully and intentionally want to do that. Apparently, as they did the post-crash investigation, they found both fuel cutoff switches in the off position, meaning that they were pulled, they were activated. Who could have done such a thing and why? It was not a system failure. Nothing was triggered electronically. It was manually done. We're waiting for that report. Obviously, we're on top of it. The other thing we have to look at, which, by the way, we have not heard yet, the actual passenger manifest on that plane. Were they trying to kill somebody on that plane? Were they targeting somebody? And who could that somebody or somebodies be? The Indians have been very slow on this, so we're going to watch it. But that's where the investigators are looking right now. I've been on the horn frequently with NTSB investigators who are my best sources on this because they know exactly what they're talking about. And that's the attention focus right now. We'll see where it goes, but very wild and curious about that. Speaking about accident investigations, July is a very interesting and usually sad month for me because it calls into acknowledgement some interesting and sad anniversaries of major airline accidents that have happened all in July. Let's start with one that happened in July of 1996. And I'm going to get to all of this in a second about what it really means. TWA Flight 800. This simulation that you're seeing now was actually done by the NTSB. About 11 minutes after takeoff, the center fuel tank explodes, ripping off the cockpit. The plane continues to fly for a while, just based on its thrust, and then, of course, falls into the ocean off the coast of Long Island. I have personal experience with that because my fire department responded to that. It was a very sad day in aviation. A lot of conspiracy theories abound about missiles being fired from the ground. That's all hogwash, as some people like to say. That plane, we know definitively why it crashed. It was a center fuel tank explosion, and no more, no less. Very terrible day for TWA Flight 800. In July was also the year, and I covered this story, which will give you an idea how old I am, of Pan Am Flight 845. Let me set the story for you first. It was a 747, a very interesting 747 that I'd flown on many years and continue to fly on after this, which I'll explain. The tail number of that plane was Pan Am N747PA. It was originally called the Clipper America. You may remember that was the plane that first went to Europe as a 747 for Pan Am. They later renamed it the Clipper Juan Trip, named for the original founder of the airline. But on this particular day in 1971, the plane was flying from San Francisco to Tokyo, fully loaded, but one of the runways was closed. They did an alternate runway, which was shorter. They didn't input the proper weight and balance, and they literally ran out of runway before they could take off. But they did take off, striking the landing lights. You know, the landing lights that are kind of tiered at the beginning or the end of the runway, which knocked out their part of their landing gear, blew tires, injured passengers on board. It came through the plane. They had to dump fuel over the Pacific, and about an hour later, they were able to land, and they actually have footage of that landing, which I'm going to explain. Roll the footage. This is the plane landing. He's veering to the right. He doesn't have all of his landing gear there, as you can see. He has trouble maintaining control. He bounces up. He's back up again. He now comes back down and buries the landing gear, and now you can see the fire right about now. By the time this plane came to a rest, it fell back on its tail. Watch. And now it just tilts back. Everybody got off alive. The plane itself structurally was broken into 3 separate pieces. And the Boeing AOG team, that stands for Aircraft on the Ground, literally flew to San Francisco with 93 technicians and metallurgists and engineers. And they literally put that plane back together again on the ground. And it flew for many, many, many more years, even after the Pan Am bankruptcy in 1991. I flew it many times. It ended up being sold to a freighter company, and then another freighter company. Then it was mothballed in the desert. Then it was broken up and used as a restaurant, and finally completely dismantled. No longer with us. N747PA. And then 12 years ago, July 6th of 2013, there was the ANA flight from Korea to San Francisco. Again, by the way, ironically, that same runway. And it was piloted by 3 pilots in the cockpit, all senior pilots. But the instrument landing system was out at that runway that day. Even so, it was 20/20 visibility. And the co-pilot kept telling the pilot he was descending too fast and going in too low. But you have a cultural problem there where nobody can question the pilot. The pilot's God. The pilot did not listen to him. And in this simulation, you'll see what happened. I know. There it is. And watch, it's coming in. But he's coming in too low. And he hits part of the landing dock that's in front of the runway. And the plane literally disintegrates and catapults. You'll see what happens right now. And that's exactly what happened. Miraculously, almost everybody got out alive. Tragically, at least 2 people that we know of got out alive, but then were accidentally run over by the rescue trucks that never saw them on the ground. I'm going to get back to the ANA crash in a second. But then there's one that happened July 19th, 1989, which is one of the more spectacular, tragic, but also one of the most amazing feats of airmanship I've ever seen. It was United Airlines Flight 232 going from Denver to Chicago. It was a DC-10. And at altitude, it suffered a major catastrophic engine disintegration on the engine that's on the tail of the DC-10, which severed all the hydraulics of the plane. The only thing the pilots had to work with was their throttle. They couldn't control their speed. They couldn't control their altitude. They opted for an alternate emergency airport that nobody ever thought they'd ever land a plane like that there, Sioux City, Iowa. The rescue crews were lined up. They had 3 pilots in the cockpit struggling to maintain control of this plane. And for those of you who remember this video, it's tough to watch when you see this fireball go down the runway.
Roger, sir. Yeah, that's a closed runway. That'll work, sir. We're getting the equipment off the runway, and they'll line up for that one. How long is it? 6,600 feet, 6,600, and the equipment's coming off. Isolate this.
How did anybody survive that crash? Believe it or not, even though the cockpit separated from the plane and cartwheeled, the pilots survived. A lot of people on the plane died, but about 112 survived. And what's significant about that plane are the lessons learned from that crash, and also what the lessons have never been applied. Are you listening, FAA? Next week, on our show, on our radio show that airs next Saturday, not tomorrow, I'm going to have one of the survivors of that plane crash, Flight Attendant Susan White, to talk about what happened that day, how it happened, why it happened, the lessons that were learned, and all the things we still need to do to make flying safer. So listen to our radio show next Saturday. Now I want to go back to the ANA crash in San Francisco, because this particular crash was miraculous that anybody survived. Most of them did. But it also shined a light on really bad reporting by journalists in one particular television station. And I'm going to show you a video in a second. This is real. Didn't make it up. It's real. As they were reporting the incident as it was happening, they didn't check the facts. Somebody got a prank phone call they didn't know was a prank, and they handed a piece of paper to the anchor, who, without thinking, just read it on the air. And what you're going to see is certainly, terrible. It can be argued that it was racist, but I have an admission to make after all those disclaimers. To this day, while it's embarrassing for me as a journalist to show you this, it actually cracks me up. Remember, I gave you all those disclaimers. Roll the tape.
Coroner is still trying to determine the cause of death and whether she was already dead when the truck hit her. We have new information now also on the plane crash. KTVU has just learned the names of the 4 pilots who were on board the flight. They are Captain Sum Ting Wong, Wee Tu Lo, Ho Lee Fook, and Bang Ding Ao. The NTSB has confirmed these are the names of the pilots on board Flight 214 when it crashed. We are working to determine exactly what roles each of them played during the landing on Saturday.
Forgive me, I had to run it. Obviously, a prank call. And by the way, it was not ANA, it was Asiana going from Seoul to San Francisco. Anyway, having said all that, again, be sure to listen to our radio show next Saturday, Eye on Travel on CBS, for that incredible interview with Susan White from the United Airlines 232 crash. Now, on a much happier note, by the way, all the videos I showed you were real. We didn't make them up. That's exactly what happened, including that Canada tourism ad. But here's one that also cracked me up that obviously isn't real, but I just wanted to make you smile today. Roll it.
Animals One Airport. Welcome to Humane Animals One Airport. Fasten your seatbelts and just watch.
Return to airport to Backward.
No! Stop! Stop!
All right, we're done with the videos today, but I just wanted to make your day on a Friday. All right, moving right along. Let's go say hello to some folks and answer some of your questions. Hello from Jim and Harriet. Always number one on the list. Priya's saying hello from Chicago. Sue's saying hi from Bellingham. Robin saying hi from Williamsburg. Matthew's saying Syracuse, New York, home of the Syracuse Nationals, largest car show in the Northeast U.S. Hi from Tulsa to Gene. Paul saying greetings from Ashland, Virginia. Jeff saying heading to earthquake-prone Japan in August. Japan is not earthquake-prone. Japan is on a fault. If you're in Tokyo, you'll probably go through about 8 different earthquake tremors a day. It's just the way of life. All right. Katrina's saying hi from Alabama. Lorena's saying hi from Lansing, Michigan, where the flowers are happy from the morning rain. Ah, how poetic. All right. Charlie's saying hi from New Orleans. Oh, actually, I take that back. He's in Baton Rouge, where he always is. And he loved the Canada ad. Matt's saying from the Chicago suburbs. Ah, My wife is checking in from JFK, where she's on her way to Turkey today. She's watching. Love you, darling. Camilla's saying hi from Tucson. Patrick's saying good morning, Peter, but he hasn't told me where he is. Camilla's saying we saw a piece of that TWA 800 floating near Robert Moses a little while after that awful crash. Yes, if you go mostly east on Fire Island, that's where most of the debris was. It was then removed, finally, and collected, and then in a hangar in Smithtown, Long Island, the authorities literally put together a scaffolding and rebuilt that plane. By the way, that plane is still available to be studied by students and aviation experts. It's no longer in Long Island, but it was an amazing work of investigation and after crash work that has never been done like that before. Bonnie's saying hi from Pennsylvania. Paul's saying the son of an engineer I worked with was on the United DC-10 flight and survived. Yeah, it's an amazing plane. Amazing accident that anybody survived that. Okay. Scott says Carnival recently changed its loyalty program with huge backlash. Any thoughts? Yeah. All the loyalty programs have been changed, whether it's cruise lines, hotels, or airlines. None of them are particularly beneficial to anybody other than cruise lines, hotels, and airlines. We'll be discussing that in depth this coming week at a travel and leisure summit in New York that I'll be speaking at. So next week I'll have a little bit more to say about it. But if you're watching me right now and you have unredeemed miles, they're not bank accounts. You're not accruing any interest. They're being devalued by the day. Guess what? Throw your bucket list out because everyone wants to go where you want to go. Pick any one of the other 193 countries you haven't been thinking about and redeem those miles or those points. They're not adding in value at all. Do it today. If that sounds like I'm telling you to have a run on the bank, I am. Okay. Mary Jo saying hello from Pennsylvania. I'm going to Buenos Aires for a cruise in early March and was shocked by how high the business class fares are right now. Well, you know what? Between now and March, it's their high season. Remember, Southern Hemisphere, wait a little bit. Or if you're booking your flight on a U.S. carrier and you still want to buy that ticket, it's okay because if the fares then come down, you can cancel that flight, get a credit, apply the credit against the other flight, and have a little credit left over for a future flight. Okay. Hello from San Juan Island. And Tisha's saying, hi, I just boarded a flight in Atlanta. Mike is saying 90 degrees and fully staffed Fort Lauderdale. I know. Let me explain what he means by that. Of the 313 air traffic control centers in America, 311 are understaffed. The only two that aren't, go figure, Akron, Ohio, and where Mike is right now, Fort Lauderdale. So I'll give you an idea of the scope and size of our problem when it comes to air traffic control. Paula says, I'll be in Burgundy in September. We'll rent a car. Any car agency recommendations? I'm particularly fond of Sixt, S-I-X-T, when you get overseas. Check that out, okay? Robin says, with all these changes to airlines and flights, any ideas when Breeze might release flights after January of 2026? For the past 2 months, no changes to their calendar. They do it on a quarterly basis. That's how they normally do their schedules. So sometime around September is when they're going to release stuff for the first quarter of next year. Okay. Barbara says, hi from Louisville, Kentucky. Next July, we're flying from SDF to Oslo. SAS out of EWR means Newark. Seems to be our best option, but I'm wondering when to buy tickets. Well, again, next July, high season. The airline computers are not set up to give you a discount for this right now. Wait until about 54 to 60 days out and see what you can do. But SAS can't be the only option for you to get to Oslo, right? It can't be. You just don't want to connect in Heathrow or Charles de Gaulle. Maybe Amsterdam, maybe Helsinki, maybe I'm trying to think where else. Oh, maybe even Zurich. But right now, way too soon to buy that ticket. Joan says, hi, Peter. We are watching from the San Francisco Bay Area. Yes, thank you for those notes. I appreciate that. Also, a couple other things we want to talk about, and I'm going to get to it right now. As you know, the bidding has closed on Lunch with Me, raising money for a very worthy cause, OperationUSA. By the way, if you don't know about them, go to their website, opusa.org. In the interest of full transparency, I'm on the board, have been for decades. It was a foundation started and an organization started by Julie Andrews. They've done unbelievable work in war-torn areas and areas devastated by natural disasters. They get supplies on the ground because they also work with a number of great airlines that are giving them tons of cargo space to be able to move things fast where it's needed the most. So check them out, opusa.org. And the winning bid submitted by Suzanne Casey. You're the winner, Suzanne. My team will be in touch with you in the next week or two to figure out how you can get your check to the right organization. Doesn't come to me, goes to them. And then we'll coordinate your lunch with me at a time and place to be determined where we're doing one of our shows where it also works out for you. So congratulations to all of you who bid. We really appreciate that. And thank you again for doing that. And you know what? We may do it again later this year if people are interested in doing it and wanting to support another cause. And we'll do that then. So congratulations again, Suzanne. Okay. Give me 1 second while we stream down here. Okay. We've got some questions coming in. Oh, yeah. All right. Oh, one more thing of housekeeping. Season 10 of our Travel Detective series is on the air now. It's streaming. You can find it on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus. And of course, check your PBS stations for your local listings as well. All right. Some questions that were sent in earlier in the week. Let's go to them. Here's one from Mario. This is about the TSA shoe thing. What took them so long? Well, remember, TSA is now using biometrics way after Clear started using them, and that's actually speeding up the process per passenger by about 35 to 40 seconds a person. Add that to the long lines you see at TSA checkpoints. That makes a significant difference. Okay. Oh, Greg wants to know, do I have a broadcast on cruising around Hawaii and airfare from Atlanta in March 2026? Well, I haven't dedicated a broadcast to it, but if you have a particular question about taking a cruise around Hawaii, more likely on NCL, let me know. I'll be glad to answer it. Lola says, any off the beaten path spots in the south of France that aren't overcrowded in August? Well, it's not just about overcrowded. It's about understaffed. That's where everybody's taking their vacation. It's tough. If you possibly can do it, Lola, it's September, the magic month in all the south of France. All right. But if you still want my recommendations for August, they're going to come with some caveats because it's going to be crowded and it's going to be understaffed. Malik says, what's the best strategy to finding a clean, affordable hotel in New York without getting scammed? Okay, let's get down to a definition of terms. What do you mean by New York? Do you mean Manhattan or New York City? I tell this to a lot of my friends all the time who are coming into New York. You don't need to stay in Midtown Manhattan. First of all, you're going to be paying a much higher rate, and there's so many other things that are going to, that you're going to be spending more money on. Look, the mass transit in New York is great. Stay in Queens, stay in Brooklyn. You can even stay in Staten Island at a small percentage of that of the cost of Midtown Manhattan, and then you're maybe 3 subway stops away from anywhere you want to go in Manhattan. That would be my advice. All right, some great hotels in those other boroughs. Teresa says, is it true Amsterdam is trying to limit tourism? Should I consider staying outside the city? A lot of states, countries, and cities are trying to limit tourism. In Amsterdam, the city council actually passed a law, almost goes back a year now, saying there cannot be any new building of hotel rooms. They put a cap on it because they were worried that the infrastructure was getting exhausted. So that was Amsterdam's approach to combating over-tourism. They also moved the cruise ships away to a different port in Amsterdam to ease traffic concerns in the city. The same thing's happening in Croatia, in Dubrovnik. We know what Venice tried to do. It didn't work. Last year, they tried to do a €5 fee for anybody who couldn't prove they had a hotel reservation. You know what happened? People came in, paid the €5 fee anyway. This year, what they do, they doubled it to €10. Any impact? Yeah. People are paying the fee and staying anyway. Look, you have to get the calendar out and turn it upside down. You go to Venice, you go to Amsterdam in September, October, November, right? You don't need to get a suntan. You want a deep cultural immersion? That's how you do it, right? And remember what we did last year? We did it on the Travel Detective. We did it as a show. We also did our radio show from there. We went cruising in the Mediterranean in December. It was glorious. We were the only ship in the harbor in every port we were in. No lines, no crowds, nobody shooting water pistols at us in Barcelona telling us to go home. We were the only ones there. Did we have a great time? Absolutely. Try to change your travel conditioning in terms of your schedule. You'll be much better off. Okay, Jonah says, I'm flying Emirates next month. Any tips for maximizing the experience and economy? Well, where are you flying? First of all. And second of all, look, Emirates does a great job. So does Qatar. So does Etihad. All three of these airlines seem to have an unlimited budget, which they exceeded, but that's beneficial to you. Bottom line is, I hope you're flying an A380 because those are fun to fly. Number two, do what I do. Get the industrial strength headphones. Makes you look like Darth Vader, right? Bring extra batteries. Although you can now easily recharge everything on board at your seat. And then bring your playlist. Download all your favorite shows on Netflix and Amazon and Apple TV and Hulu and everybody else. And just make it a 5-movie flight or binge a series or two. You're not on for the food, even though they do a pretty good job with the food. I'm not there for the food. Airline food remains in my book an oxymoron. And that's how you maximize it. The one thing good about Emirates, they have an incredible in-flight entertainment system if you didn't download your favorite shows. I think we're talking about 500 channels. I'm not exaggerating, right? I mean, the flight's not that long, but you have lots of options. All right. Here we go. Barbara says, oh, no, excuse me. Joan is saying, Barbara's saying, thanks for the advice about the Oslo flight. I chose SAS because I do not want to have a connection in Europe. Sleeping is next to impossible for me, but having a European connection only softens the time I have to sleep. Okay, I understand. All right. Lorena says, while volunteering this week at the airport, a couple with Clear asked me which line to stand in. Here's the problem. Not every airline is wired into PreCheck. You have to be a member of it. Airlines have to be a member of it. They have to pass certain criteria as well. This especially applies to foreign carriers. Only about 70% of foreign carriers flying to the U.S. are PreCheck qualified. Just remember that. All right. Let's keep going here. It's time to look at the photo of the week. Now, I love this photo. Why? Take a look at the contrast. Take a look at the light. And where was this taken? First of all, congratulations to Richard Yellen. He took this photo 187 miles above the Arctic Circle in Greenland, our 51st state. Or is it Canada? I keep forgetting. But Greenland is a very cool place to go, every pun intended. I've been going for years, way before everybody put it on the map. And, no highways, no freeways, maybe one traffic light, but it's a pretty cool place to visit. And if you look at the map, whether it's Greenland or Iceland, you can add on, by the way, the Faroe Islands, and then continue on to Copenhagen in Denmark. A great way to do it for the summer. Again, congratulations to Richard for his photo. If you think your photo qualifies as the photo of the week, you know what to do. Just send it to photo contest at petergreenberg.com. And if we agree with you, guess what? It goes right up there along with Richard. So thank you again for that. Now, a couple of other housekeeping notes. I've been giving you dates of crashes. I'm going to give you another date. December 4th, 1991. That was the last day that Pan Am ever operated as a scheduled commercial airline. Hard to believe that was almost 34 years ago. Sad day in American aviation. Sad day as a passenger who grew up on Pan Am. I did. My very first flight on a jet was on a 707 with my parents from Idlewild Airport in New York to Orly in Paris. In fact, I was so excited about it, I think I may have mentioned this last week, that I threw up. But the reason why I'm mentioning it again is because tomorrow our radio show comes from the Foynes Flying Boat Museum and Maritime History Museum in Shannon, Ireland, right before I got on the commemorative Pan Am flight. That's right, they brought the brand back. They brought the livery back and what we were doing there, they were retracing the original Atlantic routes of Pan Am that started so much in Shannon, Ireland, right there with the old Boeing flying boats, the old Clippers. And interestingly enough, in this situation, they actually repainted a 757 with the Pan Am livery. The flight attendants were wearing Pan Am uniforms. The cockpit crew was wearing Pan Am captain's uniforms. It was actually operated by Iceland Air on their crew. It was one of their aircraft, but it was an amazing experience. And you'll hear all about that tomorrow on our show, Eye on Travel, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't find the radio show in your market, no problem. Go to our website, petergreenberg.com, hit the radio icon. We stream it live starting around 10:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Who are my guests? It's going to be a different show. My guests are going to be the sons, the daughters, the relatives, the former employees of Pan Am, who will be on the show telling their stories of an airline that truly flew the flag of America. It was a truly flag carrier through so many of those years. And what it meant to aviation, what it meant to history, what it meant to our country. And the people who brought back the brand are now going to do another commemorative flight early next year where they're going to retrace all the original Pacific routes of Pan Am. We're talking Hawaii and Guam and Manila and Hong Kong, the old clipper ships landing in the harbor in Hong Kong. Such great romance, such great sentimentality, and so many great memories. We'll be sharing all of those tomorrow on Eye on Travel, so I hope you'll get a chance to tune in. Again, Travel Detective Season 10 streaming now on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus. Also available, obviously, on your local PBS station, so check those local listings. I hope you have a great rest of the week. We will know very soon, in the next, I'd say, 96 hours, as the investigation continues on the Air India 787 crash, what really happened, what was the probable cause. We'll share more of that information with you next week and what needs to be done in the wake of all that. In the meantime, have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend. Anthony Protis, thank you for handling the boards here. And we will see you next week from a different location somewhere around the world with Global Travel Update as well. Bye, everybody.